The ancient message. The crystalline halls of the Korathi command ship Eternal Glory hummed with the quiet efficiency of advanced technology. Commander Zephyr stood before a massive holographic display, his 6 arms folded behind his back as he studied the tactical readouts. The Korathi Empire had conquered 47 star systems in the past century, and their military machine had never known defeat. "Commander," called his aide, Lieutenant Sarah, her metallic voice echoing through the chamber. "The archaeology team has completed their analysis of the Vailani ruins on Kepler 442 bits. They've discovered something unusual." Zephyr's compound eyes shifted toward her. The Vailani had been extinct for over 3,000 years, their civilization wiped out by some unknown catastrophe. What remained of their once great empire were scattered ruins and mysterious technology that even the Korathi couldn't fully understand. "Show me," Zephyr commanded. The holographic display shifted to show a massive stone tablet covered in ancient Vailani script. The translation appeared beside it in glowing letters. As Zephyr read the message, his expression grew darker with each line. "To those who follow after us, heed this warning. In the outer spiral of the galaxy exists a species that calls itself human. They inhabit a small blue world orbiting a yellow star. These beings appear weak and primitive, but do not be deceived. We made the mistake of testing their resolve, and it cost us everything. The humans possess something we have never encountered in our travels across the stars. When cornered, when their survival is threatened, they become something else entirely. They adapt, they innovate, they refuse to surrender even when defeat seems certain. Their capacity for both creation and destruction knows no limits. We thought ourselves superior in every way, yet they turned our own weapons against us and brought our mighty empire to ruin. Do not attack the humans. Do not underestimate them. Do not repeat our fatal error." Lieutenant Sarah waited for her commander's response, watching as he read the message 3 times. Finally, Zephyr let out a sound that might have been laughter if the Korathi possessed such a concept. "Primitive superstition," he declared, waving one of his arms dismissively. "The Vailani grew weak in their final years. They probably encountered some minor resistance and panicked." "Sir," Sarah ventured carefully, "our scouts have confirmed the existence of this species. They call themselves humans, just as the tablet states. They inhabit a planet called Earth in a system they name Sol. Our preliminary observations suggest they've barely achieved interplanetary travel." Zephyr studied the data that appeared on screen. Images of Earth showed a world teeming with life, its blue oceans and green continents beautiful in their simplicity. The humans' largest cities were impressive by primitive standards, but their technology seemed laughably basic compared to Korathi capabilities. "Look at them," Zephyr said, gesturing at the images. "They still burn fossil fuels for energy. Their fastest ships take months to reach their own moon. Their weapons are crude projectile devices and chemical explosives. How could such beings possibly threaten an empire that has conquered half the galaxy?" Within hours, the message from the ruins had reached the Korathi High Council on their home world of Centauri Prime. The council chamber, a massive sphere of black metal floating in space above the planet, buzzed with debate. 12 of the Empire's most powerful leaders sat in hovering chairs arranged in a perfect circle, their forms bathed in the cold light of distant stars. "The Vailani were once our equals in power," argued Councillor Thane, her voice carrying the weight of centuries. "If they warn us against these humans, perhaps we should listen." "The Vailani are dead," countered Councillor Voss, his scared carapace reflecting the chamber's lights. "Whatever destroyed them has been gone for millennia. This warning is ancient history, irrelevant to our current expansion plans." Supreme Councillor Nexus raised one massive claw for silence. The chamber fell quiet, all eyes turning to the eldest and most powerful of their kind. "The humans possess resources we need," Nexus stated in his deep, resonant voice. "Iron, gold, platinum, and this substance they call petroleum. Their world could fuel our expansion for the next 2 centuries. The warning specifically mentions not to attack them. Thane insisted. Perhaps we could negotiate, establish trade relations. Several counselors made the Korathi equivalent of scoffing sounds. The Empire had never negotiated with primitive species. They conquered, they claimed. They moved on. It was the natural order of things. I propose a compromise. Commander Zephyr interjected through the communication link from his ship. Grant me permission to conduct a limited test of their capabilities. A small demonstration of our power should be sufficient to gauge their response. If they prove as weak as they appear, we proceed with full conquest. If they show unexpected resistance, we can reassess. The vote was close, but the Council approved Zephyr's proposal. Within days, a Korathi battle group of 50 ships began the journey toward the Sol system, their faster-than-light drives cutting through space like knives through silk. Far across the galaxy, Captain Sarah Chen stood in the observation deck of Olympus Station, humanity's most advanced research facility orbiting Mars. The red planet hung below her like a rust-colored marble, its polar ice caps gleaming in the sunlight. Chen had spent the last 5 years studying the possibility of terraforming Mars, but today her attention was focused on something far more urgent. "Captain," called Dr. James Rodriguez from the sensor station, "we're getting some very strange readings from our deep space monitoring array. Multiple objects approaching from outside the solar system, moving faster than anything we've ever recorded." Chen moved to his workstation, her military bearing evident in every step. She had served in the Space Force for 15 years before joining the Mars colonization project, and her instincts told her that whatever was approaching meant trouble. "How fast?" she asked, studying the data streams flowing across the multiple screens. "Nearly 20% light speed," Rodriguez replied, his voice tight with concern. "And they're decelerating in a controlled manner. This isn't natural phenomenon, Captain. These are artificial objects under intelligent control." Chen felt her heart rate increase. Humanity had been searching for signs of extraterrestrial intelligence for over a century, but they had always imagined first contact would involve radio signals or peaceful exploration. The approach pattern of these objects suggested something far more ominous. "Alert Earth Command immediately," she ordered. "Full priority transmission. And activate the emergency protocols for all stations in the outer system." On Earth, the news sent shockwaves through every government and military organization. President Maria Santos convened an emergency session of the Global Defense Council in a bunker deep beneath Geneva. Representatives from every major nation gathered around a circular table, their faces illuminated by the glow of holographic displays showing the approaching alien fleet. "Current projections indicate the unknown vessels will reach Neptune's orbit in approximately 18 hours, reported General Thompson, the head of Earth's Unified Space Defense Forces. "We've attempted communication on every frequency we can generate. No response." "What are our defensive capabilities?" asked Premier Liu of the Asian Coalition. Thompson's expression was grim. "Limited. We have 3 orbital defense platforms around Earth, 2 around Mars, and scattered monitoring stations throughout the outer system. Our total combat-capable spacecraft number fewer than 2 dozen. If these aliens are hostile and possess advanced technology, our chances of meaningful resistance are minimal." President Santos stood, her voice carrying the authority of someone who had led humanity through previous crises. "Ladies and gentlemen, we may be facing the most significant moment in human history. Whether these visitors come in peace or war, our response will define our species' future. I'm authorizing the activation of Project Prometheus." Several representatives looked surprised. Project Prometheus was humanity's most classified defense initiative, a last-resort weapon system that had been developed in absolute secrecy. Even Chen, monitoring the meeting from Mars, had never heard the name before. The Korathi battle group emerged from faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Sol system, their sleek ships shimmering into existence like mirages becoming real. Commander Zephyr stood on his bridge, studying the primitive solar system spread out before him. The third planet from the star was indeed blue and green, just as the ancient warning had described. "Scan the system," he ordered. I want to know everything about their defensive capabilities. His sensors officer, a young Korathi named Bite, worked quickly at his station. Commander, they have several artificial satellites and space stations. Energy signatures suggest nuclear power sources and primitive plasma drives. Their largest installation appears to be orbiting the fourth planet. Mars, Zephyr mused, reading the translation from their databases. Begin with their outer defenses. A demonstration of our superiority should encourage quick surrender. Captain Chen watched helplessly as the alien ships approached Olympus Station. The vessels were unlike anything in human science fiction, their hull composed of what appeared to be living metal that shifted and flowed like liquid while maintaining solid integrity. They were beautiful in a terrifying way, elegant predators designed for destruction. Captain, they're charging weapons, Rodriguez reported, his voice barely above a whisper. Energy readings are off the charts. Chen activated the station-wide communication system. All personnel, this is the captain. Prepare for emergency evacuation. This is not a drill. The first Korathi plasma beam struck Olympus Station's outer hull with the force of a small star. The metal vaporized instantly, atmosphere rushing out into space as emergency bulkheads slammed shut. But the station's most important cargo wasn't equipment or supplies. It was the 300 human beings who lived and worked there, each one an example of humanity's greatest strength, the refusal to give up. As Olympus Station broke apart around them, Chen and her crew began implementing evacuation procedures that had been drilled but never tested. They moved with practiced efficiency, helping civilians into escape pods while damage control teams fought desperately to maintain life support in the remaining sections. Captain, Dr. Rodriguez called out over the chaos. I'm reading massive electromagnetic interference from their weapons. But there's something else. The energy patterns are incredibly complex, more sophisticated than anything we theorized. If we could analyze this data. Another plasma beam struck the station, and Rodriguez never finished his sentence. But in those final moments, automatic systems had recorded everything. The sensor data, the energy patterns, the precise frequencies of the alien weapons, all of it transmitted to Earth's military research facilities in the microseconds before Olympus Station died. On Earth, Dr. Marcus Webb received the transmission in his laboratory beneath the Cheyenne Mountains. A physicist who had spent his career studying theoretical weapons technology, Webb immediately recognized the significance of what he was seeing. The aliens' weapons were advanced beyond human understanding, but they followed the same physical laws that governed all matter and energy in the universe. If we can understand how they work, he muttered to himself as he began preliminary analysis, maybe we can find a way to fight back. The Korathi attack continued for 6 hours, systematically destroying every human installation in the outer solar system. Commander Zephyr watched with satisfaction as mining stations, research facilities, and defense platforms were reduced to expanding clouds of superheated gas. Not one human installation had managed to return effective fire. Resistance levels? He inquired. Minimal, reported Lieutenant Xara. They launched several primitive missiles and projectile weapons, but our shields deflected them easily. Total Korathi casualties, 0. Estimated human casualties, approximately 4,000. Zephyr nodded approvingly. Broadcast a surrender demand to their home world. Tell them they have 24 hours to submit to Korathi authority, or we will begin bombardment of their population centers. But as the message traveled toward Earth, something unexpected was happening in the ruins of Olympus Station. Captain Sarah Chen had survived the destruction, trapped in an emergency shelter with 12 other humans. They had limited air, no communication with Earth, and no hope of rescue. By all logical measures, they should have been preparing to die. Instead, Chen was studying the wreckage around them with the intensity of a predator stalking prey. The alien attack had left debris scattered throughout Mars' orbit, including fragments of the weapons that had destroyed their station. As she watched pieces of alien technology drift past their shelter's small viewport, Chen began to formulate a plan that would have seemed impossible to any other species in the galaxy. Humans, it seemed, had a different definition of impossible. The ancient Vailani warning echoed across the void of space, unheard but increasingly relevant with each passing moment. The Korathi had made the same mistake their predecessors had made millennia before. They had measured human strength by human technology, human size by human appearance, human determination by human resources. They were about to learn why that was a fatal error. As Earth's 24-hour deadline began to count down, every human on the planet and beyond began to demonstrate the truth of the ancient message. When cornered, when their survival was threatened, humans became something else entirely. Something that had brought down mighty empires before and would do so again. The human response. The emergency broadcast reached every corner of Earth at exactly 1547 Greenwich Mean Time. President Santos appeared on screens worldwide, her face grave, but determined as she delivered the message that would define humanity's future. My fellow humans, we are no longer alone in the universe. An alien force calling itself the Korathi Empire has attacked our outer system installations and given us 24 hours to surrender unconditionally. They have killed 4,000 of our people in what they call a demonstration of their power. She paused, letting the weight of those words settle across the globe. I want to be clear about something. Surrender is not an option. We will not bow to those who murder innocent civilians. We will not submit to slavery. We are human beings, and we will fight for our freedom no matter the odds. In the depths of the Cheyenne Mountain complex, Dr. Marcus Webb worked frantically with a team of the world's best scientists and engineers. The data recovered from the destroyed stations had given them their first real look at Korathi technology, and what they found was both terrifying and encouraging. Their weapons are incredibly sophisticated, Webb explained to General Thompson during a hurried briefing. They use contained plasma held in magnetic bottles, fired at nearly light speed. The energy requirements are enormous, which means they need massive power cores on each ship. What's the encouraging part? Thompson asked. Webb smiled grimly. Power cores that big need cooling systems, and cooling systems can be overloaded. If we can figure out how to disrupt their thermal management, their own weapons will cook them from the inside. Meanwhile, 300 million miles away, Captain Sarah Chen was proving that human ingenuity didn't require laboratories or massive resources. Using nothing but emergency repair tools and debris from the destroyed station, she and her 12 companions had constructed something that would have impressed the engineers back on Earth. Rodriguez was right before he died, Chen said as she carefully adjusted a makeshift device built from salvaged alien metal and human electronics. Their energy patterns are complex, but they're also predictable. Every weapon system has a resonance frequency. Sergeant Mike Torres, a former Marine who had been assigned to station security, looked skeptical. Captain, with all due respect, we're talking about building a weapon from spare parts that can damage ships capable of destroying space stations. Chen looked up from her work, her eyes blazing with the intensity that had made her one of humanity's youngest Space Force captains. Sergeant, 6 months ago, we thought faster-than-light travel was impossible. 2 weeks ago, we thought we were alone in the universe. Yesterday, we thought our defensive grid was adequate. Today, we're going to prove that human creativity is the most powerful force in the galaxy. The device she was building looked like something from a mad scientist's laboratory. Alien hull fragments were wired to human power cells, connected through a network of cables salvaged from destroyed computers. It shouldn't have worked. By every law of physics and engineering, it was an impossible combination of incompatible technologies. But Chen had spent 5 years studying how to make Mars habitable for human life. She understood better than most how to make the impossible merely difficult. On Earth, the 24-hour deadline was approaching rapidly. The Korathi fleet had moved into high orbit around the planet, their ships visible to the naked eye as bright dots moving across the sky. Commander Zephyr waited confidently for humanity's surrender, secure in the knowledge that no primitive species had ever refused his ultimatum. Commander, Lieutenant Sarah reported, We're receiving multiple transmissions from the planet's surface. Audio, video, and data streams on hundreds of different frequencies. Their surrender? Zephyr asked. Zara's expression was puzzled. No, sir. It appears to be music, art, historical records, something they call the golden record containing information about their species and culture. Zephyr felt the first stirring of unease. In his experience, species facing annihilation didn't waste time on cultural preservation. They begged, they offered tribute, they sought terms for surrender. They didn't broadcast symphonies and poetry. Sir, another officer reported, we're also detecting massive industrial activity across their planet. Energy signatures suggest they're manufacturing something at an unprecedented rate. On Earth's surface, every factory, every 3D printer, every automated production facility was running at maximum capacity. Dr. Webb's team had developed blueprints for weapons that combined human engineering with reverse-engineered alien technology. The designs were crude, inelegant, and completely outside normal parameters for either species typical. On Earth's surface, every factory, every 3D printer, every automated production facility was running at maximum capacity. Dr. Webb's team had developed blueprints for weapons that combined human engineering with reverse-engineered alien technology. The designs were crude, inelegant, and completely outside normal parameters for either species typical armaments. They were also devastatingly effective. The beauty of human engineering, Webb explained to his team as they watched the first prototype being tested, is that we don't care if something looks pretty or follows established design principles. We care if it works. The prototype looked like a cross between a rocket launcher and a Tesla coil, all exposed wiring and improvised components. When fired, it produced a beam of energy that could punch through Korathi shield technology by resonating at frequencies the aliens had never encountered. It was inefficient, unstable, and required constant manual adjustment. It was also something the Korathi had no defense against, because their entire military doctrine was based on fighting opponents who used logical, efficient weapon systems. As the deadline approached, Captain Chen activated her own improvised device in the ruins of Olympus Station. The alien ships were kilometers away, but she had calculated their energy patterns down to the microsecond. Her weapon had exactly one shot before it would burn out, and if she missed, she and her companions would die along with everyone on Earth. She didn't miss. The energy pulse from Chen's device struck the nearest Korathi ship at the precise moment its weapon systems were cycling for another bombardment. The resonance effect Webb had theorized about proved devastatingly real. The ship's power core went critical, containment fields collapsed, and the resulting explosion was visible from Earth's surface. Commander Zephyr stared in shock as one of his ships simply vanished in a ball of superheated plasma. How was that possible? They have no weapons capable of penetrating our shields. But the destruction of the Korathi ship was only the beginning. Across Earth's surface, hidden installations were revealing weapons that followed no logical design principles. Massive rail guns built from modified particle accelerators fired projectiles that exploded into clouds of metallic dust, each particle carrying a small electromagnetic charge that disrupted Korathi electronics. Laser arrays powered by entire cities focused their beams through crystalline lenses made from laboratory-grown diamonds, creating coherent light so intense it could cut through alien hull material like paper. Most disturbing of all were the missile swarms launched from converted civilian spacecraft. Each missile was different, built by different groups of humans working from the same basic principles, but implementing them in wildly creative ways. Some carried conventional explosives enhanced with alien power cells. Others generated electromagnetic pulses designed to overload Korathi computers. A few simply rammed into alien ships at high velocity, their crews having decided that dying while taking enemies with them was preferable to living as slaves. "Sir," Lieutenant Sarah reported, her voice shaking, "we're reading massive casualties across the fleet. 17 ships destroyed, 31 severely damaged. The humans are using weapons we've never seen before. Zephyr activated his personal communication link to the Korathi High Council. Supreme Counselor Nexus, I need immediate reinforcements. The humans are not what we expected. Nexus' response was sharp with anger. Explain yourself, Commander. You assured us this would be a simple conquest. Sir, they've somehow reverse-engineered our technology and combined it with their own in ways that make no sense. Their weapons are crude, inefficient, and completely unpredictable. They're fighting like no species we've ever encountered. In the ancient ruins on Kepler 442 bits, automated systems recorded the energy signatures of the battle raging around Earth. If the long-dead Vylani could have witnessed the scene, they would have recognized the patterns immediately. Humans were doing exactly what the warning had predicted. They were adapting, innovating, refusing to surrender even when victory seemed impossible. Back at Mars, Captain Chen and her survivors had been rescued by a human patrol ship that had survived the initial attacks by playing dead among the debris. As they traveled toward Earth, Chen studied the tactical reports flooding in from the battle zone. They're making the same mistake everyone makes when fighting humans, she told the ship's captain, a grizzled veteran named Frank Morrison. They're trying to predict our behavior based on logic and efficiency. Morrison grinned, his weathered face showing the scars of a lifetime spent in dangerous places. And humans have never been accused of being logical. The battle around Earth continued for 6 hours, but it was unlike any conflict in Korathi military history. Human forces appeared and disappeared without warning, striking from unexpected angles with weapons that seemed to change their capabilities between engagements. Every time the Korathi adapted to one tactic, the humans switched to something completely different. Dr. Webb had established a real-time communication network that connected every human research facility, military installation, and civilian workshop on the planet. Ideas flowed freely between groups, with improvements and modifications being shared instantly. A weapon design created in Tokyo would be modified in London, enhanced in New York, and mass-produced in Sao Paulo, all within hours. The Korathi, despite their advanced technology, couldn't match this kind of creative collaboration. Their military doctrine was based on rigid hierarchies and standardized equipment. Individual initiative was discouraged, and innovation had to be approved through multiple levels of command. Commander Zephyr found himself fighting an enemy that evolved faster than his forces could adapt. Their tactical patterns make no sense, he complained to his staff. They sacrifice valuable resources for minimal tactical gains. They use their civilian population as combatants. They refuse to retreat even when facing certain destruction. Sir, one of his tactical officers observed, perhaps that's exactly the point. They're not trying to win through superior firepower or tactical efficiency. They're trying to make victory so costly that we'll eventually decide the conquest isn't worth the price. Zephyr's compound eyes narrowed as he considered this possibility. In all of the Korathi Empire's conquests, they had never faced an enemy willing to accept unlimited casualties in exchange for inflicting limited damage on the invaders. Most species, when faced with overwhelming force, chose survival over pride. Humans, apparently, had different priorities. The turning point came when Captain Chen's ship reached Earth's orbit. She had used the journey to develop a new weapon system based on her experiences at Mars, but this one was designed for large-scale deployment. Instead of trying to destroy Korathi ships, her weapon targeted their communication networks. Every species in the galaxy uses quantum entanglement for faster-than-light communication, she explained to the assembled Earth Defense Command. But they all use the same basic protocols, the same security methods. Humans never developed FTL communication, so we never learned the proper way to do it. Her virus, crafted from human computer code and delivered through captured Korathi communication arrays, spread through the alien fleet like wildfire. It didn't destroy their computers, but it filled their communication channels with something far more disturbing than static. It filled them with human voices. Every Korathi ship suddenly found its communication systems broadcasting everything from Beethoven's Ninth Symphony to children singing lullabies. Technical coordination became impossible as their tactical networks carried streams of human poetry, historical speeches, and fragments of conversation from across Earth. The psychological effect was devastating. The Korathi were forced to listen to the voices of the people they were trying to conquer, to hear their hopes, their fears, their determination to remain free. Commander Zephyr, listening to a recording of President Santos reading names of the dead from Olympus Station, finally understood what the ancient Vailani warning had tried to tell them. Humans weren't just defending their territory or their resources. They were defending something the Korathi had never encountered in their conquests, an idea. The idea that freedom was worth any price. "Signal the fleet," Zephyr ordered quietly. "Full retreat to minimum safe distance." "Sir." Lieutenant Sara looked shocked. "We still have numerical superiority. Our technology is still more advanced than theirs." Zephyr watched the tactical display where human ships continued their impossible, chaotic attacks. "Look at them, Sara. Really look. They're not fighting to win. They're fighting to ensure that we lose. There's a difference." As the Korathi fleet withdrew to the outer edge of the solar system, humans across Earth and throughout the surviving orbital installations began to realize something unprecedented had happened. They had faced the most powerful military force in the galaxy, and they had not been conquered. Dr. Webb, exhausted but triumphant, addressed the Global Defense Council from his laboratory. "We've proven something today that every human should remember forever. Superior technology doesn't guarantee victory. Superior numbers don't guarantee victory. The only thing that guarantees victory is the refusal to accept defeat." Captain Chen, now promoted to admiral and placed in command of humanity's rapidly expanding space fleet, stood on the bridge of the first human ship built entirely with hybrid human Korathi technology. The vessel was a masterpiece of improvised engineering, combining the best aspects of both species' design philosophies while adding uniquely human innovations. "Admiral," her communications officer reported, "we're receiving a transmission from the Korathi commander." Chen smiled. "Put him through." Commander Zephyr's image appeared on the main screen, his alien features showing what might have been resignation or respect. "Admiral Chen, I am prepared to discuss terms for our withdrawal from your system." "Commander," Chen replied, "the only terms we're interested in discussing are the ones that ensure this never happens again. Not just to us, but to any other species you might decide to test in the future." The negotiation that followed would establish the foundation for a new era in galactic politics. The Korathi Empire, faced with an enemy that grew stronger with every battle, agreed to unprecedented restrictions on their expansion activities. More importantly, they agreed to share the ancient Vailani warning with every species in the galaxy. The message was simple, but its implications were profound. When evaluating potential conflicts with unknown species, remember that strength cannot be measured by technology alone. Some beings become more dangerous when threatened, not less. Some fights are not worth winning. As news of humanity's victory spread across the galaxy, other species began to reassess their assumptions about power, technology, and the nature of civilization itself. The humans had proven that creativity, determination, and the willingness to sacrifice for principles could overcome even the most advanced military technology. In the ruins of ancient Vailani cities, automated monitoring systems recorded the successful defense of Earth and updated their databases. The warning that had been ignored for 3,000 years had finally been heeded, not by those who received it, but by those it was meant to protect. Captain Sarah Chen, now Admiral Chen, stood once again in an observation deck, but this time she was looking out at a view that would have been impossible just weeks before. Human and Korathi ships worked together in Earth's orbital shipyards, building vessels that combined the best of both species' technologies. The war was over, but the cooperation it had spawned was just beginning. "Admiral," her aide asked, "do you think they'll try again someday?" Chen smiled, watching as a human engineer explained some modification to a group of Korethi technicians who listened with respectful attention. "I don't think they'll need to. We're not the same species that was attacked a month ago, and neither are they." The ancient Vailani warning had proven prophetic in ways its creators never could have imagined. The humans hadn't just defended themselves against the Korethi Empire. They had changed it, forced it to evolve, and in doing so had created the foundation for a new kind of galactic civilization. One where strength was measured not by the power to destroy, but by the wisdom to choose when that power should be used. And in the depths of space, other ancient warnings waited to be discovered, left by species who had learned the same lesson the Korethi had learned. Sometimes the greatest victory comes from choosing not to fight at all.